Sairam and welcome Father Kumaran Francis Subrayan to the studios of Radio Sai in Puttaparthi.
Sairam.
You've been a priest serving in South Africa for 6 years. So what brings you to Prashantinilayam?
That's true. I belong to the Anglican Church and I'm an Anglican priest. Over the years in my own spiritual journey, I've come to this realization that God is one, but we express that truth in many ways. And the teaching of Swami Satya Sai Baba regarding this oneness and that the true religion is love is the thing that really attracts me towards Swami's teachings. And that's what brings me to Puttaparthi is that message of oneness resonates with me, and wherever I see this message of oneness, I feel attracted to it. And so I think that's the core of it, is this message of oneness.
When did this realization happen about the unity of divinity?
Yeah. Well, I was born to a family where my father was an Anglican Christian and my mother had come from an Hindu background. My grandmother who lived with us was a practicing Hindu. And so I grew up in both worlds. And at some point I felt a strong call towards the Christian priesthood and I pursued that. But on the journey of this call of the Christian priesthood, and as my spirituality deepened, I soon started to realize that the mystery of God cannot be contained in one religion or in one doctrine or theology or whatever you want to call it.
So this came on its own?
Yes, it was a slow awakening to this truth, But for me, it was also a need to embrace these two paths or these two worldviews that was such a bigger part of my life, the Hindu and the Christian, and to find a way to bridge both so that there isn't tension within myself concerning these two spiritualities that were so much a part of who I am. And so India has been profound in that sense, in helping me to awaken to this reality of this oneness of divinity.
And so you came to India?
Yes. At the moment, I'm living in Tiruvannamalai, at the sacred mountain Arunachala. A year ago, I was at Arunachala for the feast of Karthige Deepam. And there, during the lighting of the fire, I had a profound experience of Siva Arunachala.
Mm-hmm.
And
so what was that experience?
Well, when the fire actually was lit on the mountain, I felt like the entire mountain itself was glowing with this divine radiance. And that was when Arunachala attracted me. But I've also come to believe this concept of Siva in Tamil Nadu. For many people, Siva is the ultimate. Whatever you call it, whether you call it Siva or Vishnu or Allah or the Father of Christ, it's the same mystery. And so when I read Jesus' descriptions of his Father and I read the texts that describe Siva, I cannot help but conclude that this is the same reality. Mm-hmm. In the Bible, we have a story that when the Hebrew people were brought out of Egypt, that God led them and he appeared before them in a pillar of fire. Mm-hmm. And the story of Arunachala is that Siva actually appeared there in a column of fire or a pillar of fire.
Yes.
Now, how can you say one fire is God and one is not? Is it not the same revelation? And so this is my firm belief that whatever you call the transcendent mystery, whether you name it Siva or Vishnu or Allah or Jesus or Yahweh. In Africa, they call it Umkulunkulu, the first father of everything. Whatever you call it, humanity is referring to that same transcendent mystery. And ultimately, though we give it a name, it is nameless. It goes beyond any name we can utter. And though we give it many forms, and we need that because as embodied spirits, we need something to look at, something to hear. It helps us enter the deeper space within us. But irrespective of whatever form we give it, it's ultimately formless. It's beyond name and form. And so now I'm living in Thiruvannamalai at Arunachala and just living as a sadhak, searching for deeper meaning, deeper spirituality, as a Christian priest who believes Jesus is his Sanata Satguru, but experiencing the mystery that Jesus spoke of through this ancient mystery of Arunachala Siva.
So, what have you discovered as you spend time in Arunachala, as you read the sacred texts of Christianity as well as the ancient spiritual heritage of India? What are the different things that you're discovering which is only confirming your conviction about the unity of divinity?
Yeah, well, that's precisely it, is that it's a constant confirmation of this oneness of everything, that everything is one and the divine mystery is one. So there's this constant confirmation of that. But also for me, as I read the Gospels of Jesus in this context, without the Western lens that have been imposed upon the gospel for many years, as I read it with Eastern spectacles on or Indian spectacles, I discover that Jesus is profoundly Eastern in his teachings, and that Jesus in the Gospels is speaking a message that's almost identical to the message of the Hindu sages. I would dare to say his message is Vedantic.
Vedantic?
Yes, that Jesus is teaching Vedanta at its deepest level. That, he says, I and the Father are one. Is that not Advaita, the non-dual experience of the Hindu sages?
Yes. And Jesus also said that I am the way, and you have to reach the Father in no other way except through me. How do you explain that? Because I think these are the statements from the Bible. I don't know if they are taken out of context, but these are the statements of the Bible which perhaps has been quoted to many Christians, and that is what has perhaps led to narrowing down of vision.
Exactly. That verse that you quote is one of those verses that are often problematic in interreligious dialogue. It's in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 6. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. Now, if we focus on the person of Jesus and read that message, it may sound a bit sectarian or exclusive, unless you believe in Jesus as the only Son of God, you cannot come to the Father. And some people have imposed a little further interpretation on the verse. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. You can't come to the Father through him, but you can't come to him except through the church,
Okay.
And he didn't say that. But this is how I interpret that verse, if I may share my thoughts on it.
Sure.
When Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, you've got to just pause for a moment. And you've got to meditate on those words. I am the way. What was his way? You read the gospel, his way was the way of love.
Yes.
It was a way of extreme love, a love that causes him to wash the feet of his disciples, a love that causes him to stretch his arms on the cross as a reminder that God can do many things except close his arms to his children. This was the way of Jesus, a way of absolute love. What was the truth that he spoke? Was it not the truth that God is one and God loves us all? That God does not have prejudice when he looks upon humanity, but sees every single soul as his child? The truth of Jesus was this. And what was the life that he offered us? It was the God life. A life of realization of our true divinity and our oneness with God. And so if you interpret it this way, then the message is suddenly universal.
Yes.
He's saying the way is love. The truth is God is one. This life is available to all humanity. And unless you follow this, you can't come to God.
Yes.
You see, and we all have to agree with that.
Yes.
That unless we follow the way of love, the way of realization of the oneness of God, unless we seek the God life, we can't come to God. And so suddenly that verse, when interpreted like this, becomes extremely universal and not sectarian
Absolutely.
and not exclusive.